This episode is sponsored by Samson Video Productions. Hello and welcome back to Film Pro Productivity and Success, the podcast that helps film professionals and other creative people to live a more focused, effective and happy life. My name is Carter Ferguson and this is what episode is it? 117, Rediscovering Passion. Passion is energy. Feel the power that comes from focusing on what excites you. Oprah Winfrey, unquote. And in last week's show, I looked at 3 more archetypes of toxic people that you may have had the misfortune to find in your life. And I talked again about the importance of getting rid of them, getting them out of your life if you want to find success. And if you missed that one, please do go back and have a listen, because toxic people can destroy your productivity, and getting rid of them is an essential part of moving forward towards success. American self-help author and motivational speaker Wayne Dyer says that passion is a feeling that tells you this is the right thing to do. Nothing can stand in my way. It doesn't matter what anyone else says. This feeling is so good that it cannot be ignored. I'm going to follow my bliss and act upon this glorious sensation of joy. And for the record, I agree. Passion is what drives us. Passion guides us and fuels us in our life and in our career. And it's an integral part of what we are. But today, I want to talk about something that I've struggled with in recent years. And it's not something I hear anyone else talking about. Rediscovering the passion that we've lost along the way. Quite often, the passion for what I do dwindles as I interact with difficult people and I get burdened by unrewarding and unpleasant experiences. And the film and television world can be a tangled web of lies, exclusion, late bookings, and even later cancellations, and indeed bookings that turn into thin air after weeks of communication and preparatory work. And it's the late payments and the chasing of money owed. It's the lack of empathy from indifferent production personnel, the withholding of essential information, the disrespect for my talent and my person, and the disrespect really for those that I bring onto productions as like action actors or fight assistants. And it's the unreasonable demands and brilliant comms that you get before the day you're going to be working, which become poor to stroke terrible non-existent comms after the work has been completed and I'm looking to be paid. In fact, comms are generally atrocious anyway, with only a few standout production managers and line producers really putting in the effort to keep me informed and happy. And sometimes, in fact, I feel that the way I'm getting treated by others is like deliberate cruelty, and more than once I've joked about starting a society for the prevention of cruelty to fight directors. But I know that it's not just me that has to deal with all of this. In fact, I ran a poll on Facebook recently, and overwhelmingly, poor communication was the biggest gripe which most of the people that had voted had to face. And close on its heels was the feeling that as a local crew member, it was much harder to get employed on local productions than someone who lived far away. That's episode 110 for those of you that are thinking, oh, I've heard about that before. The prophet is not recognised in his land, and that episode dips into why that sort of thing happens. And I wish it dipped into more ways to combat it, but it doesn't really, because it's just something you kind of have to live with, I think, along the way. But check it out if you've missed it. There is something to learn in there. It's a real problem and it's a real bastard to get around, I've got to be honest. But yeah, so see everything I've just listed there? That's stuff that happens to me in like 1 month of work. It's just this constant battle, and that chips away at my passion. The passion for the work that I do has received such a beating, in fact, over the years, that I've had to work hard recently to rediscover it. And I'm still working on my passion for the fight work, which has been smashed to pieces in the last probably 2 or 3 weeks. I'm recording this on the 1st of July, by the way. This is a pre-record 12 weeks in advance, just because I can. But yeah, in recent weeks, I've been dealing with pretty much everything that I've just listed there, and it's left me feeling undervalued and disrespected. But to some extent, I have been able to rebuild my passion, at least for filmmaking, which is something I gave up on for a few years. In fact, I stopped making films in 2019. I think I mentioned this before, as I had 2 unpleasant experiences in a row, but it had been hard going for years, if I'm truly honest. Being constantly let down and being rejected for funding, for example. I know I got on about that one a lot, but that really brings you down. Being abused by reviewers after months and sometimes years of effort spent working on a project that's got next to no money behind it. And time and again bumping into people who try to hijack my projects, not by actually working to gain ownership of them, but by claiming ownership of them after the fact. Sometimes somebody who's been on it for one day will be trying to claim that it's their production when you've spent, 170 days on it. Whereas, they can definitely say they're associated with it. They certainly can't claim ownership of it. And that's brought me down a few times over the years. But all of these things knocked my passion for making films to the ground. And for 2 years, I didn't shoot a thing. If there's no passion in your life, then have you really lived? Find your passion, whatever it may be. Become it and let it become you. And you will find great things happen for you, to you, and because of you. Alan Armstrong, unquote. So how do you keep feeling inspired and infuse passion back into what you do? How do you come to regain that focus and to remember your original drive? Well, I'd say you ain't going to make any headway on rediscovering your passion if you don't know what your passion is in the first place. So first thing you want to do is to get specific about what it is you want to rekindle. And for me, recently, it was perhaps not so much the passion for just filmmaking, but more so about doing my own film projects, whatever they may be, because I have been making films, it's just they weren't mine. When I decided that I wanted to rediscover and focus down on my own projects again, the simple act of remembering what my passion was kind of made me feel happier in the first instance. Just as seeing your passions withering on the vine, as it were, or realizing that you've lost them will make you kind of sigh for their loss. Remembering them is the first step to recovering them. And as soon as you discover what you've missed and commit to putting time and energy into it again, you will actually begin to feel an energy shift. Now, if you've completely forgotten your passions completely and you want to rediscover them, think back to a time when you were happy about how things were. And how did you spend your time? Ask yourself that. What were your obsessions? What could you focus on at that point and do for hours? What were your primary focuses? What occupied your mind and your heart? And if you can list all of those passions, and you have them in front of you, then you can decide which of them that you want to rediscover. That's if you've completely lost touch with what they are in the first place. Because as I say, I went looking for mine, and then I've got some of the passions I once had back. I'm not completely passionless yet. They're maybe slightly different now than what they once were, but I did rediscover the passions that I was looking for just by doing that simple exercise there. But here's a few suggestions that might also help you to rediscover or rekindle your passion. Once you're past the rediscovery phase, you're kind of onto rekindling it. I'm not sure if I'll call this episode Rekindling Your Passion. Could be. Maybe Rediscovering Your Passion will do. We shall see when it goes out. And the first thing that I suggest you do if you want to rediscover your passion or rekindle it, is to slow down. Make time for you to listen to yourself, and don't spend this time keeping busy doing distracted tasks. By the way, it's really a kind of sitting and thinking exercise. The idea is to find your passion and purpose by doing things like sitting quietly or going for long walks. I tend to think about these things when I'm swimming, or I might do a bit of internet research along the way to find it. But simple things. Basically, letting yourself get bored will help you to slow down. And being bored's a good thing, because when you're bored, your mind begins to explore, and your subconscious will keep you going on what interests you, and you'll begin to rediscover your passion and begin to find the answers perhaps that you've been searching for when you are able to listen to yourself, listen to your own thoughts. And the second thing I suggest you do is you celebrate your wins. I've maybe said that a bit too fast. To celebrate your wins, reflect on your big wins of the past and celebrate them. Then begin working on getting into the habit of celebrating your small wins every day. Too often we overlook these meaningful contributions that we make every day, and how satisfying our accomplishments makes us feel. And this again comes back to the productivity cycle. Giving yourself a pat on the back along the way will keep your energy going, will keep your drive going, will keep your productivity going. It's an acknowledgement that you have done well. Do not miss this out of your life. It's an important thing. But third up, I'm going to say own your uniqueness. And what I mean by that is that, no one else has got your unique blend of talents, wisdom, strengths, skills, creativity. We've all got something great to offer, and learning to accept and own what makes you unique is crucial to sharing your gifts with the world, as it were. Your uniqueness is the seed of your passion, so embrace it. And go back to listen to episode 101, the David Bowie one, if you want to hear a bit more about that. Uniqueness is not just, important in this context. It's important if you want to be successful. I'll probably cover it in another episode because I've got a slightly different angle on that as well that I've been playing with in my mind that I know is talked about in productivity circles. And the fourth thing I want to say, though, on this one is to write, to rediscover a passion. Try putting pen to paper rather than using a computer, because your thoughts will generate differently when you write things out by hand. And during your time alone, find twice a day to set a timer for, say, 10 minutes and just sit down and write anything and don't stop to think. This is in that boredom period that I talked about earlier. If you don't know what to write, just write blah, blah, blah until a new idea emerges. But answer any question that comes to mind, but start considering questions like, of all the things I do, I am most happy when, de-dum. Or I am most proud of, da-da-da-da-da. I don't need to say da-da-da, but how about I make myself laugh at these things. What else I've got written down here? I've always wanted to. There's another question. I would like to work with. That's another thing you can start writing and see what fills in. Or when I was younger, I thought I would, and see what plays out with that one. Just try handwriting out and letting a stream of consciousness go in there. It's a bit like the brain dump that I talked about. I think it was the last episode. It'll be 112 probably, last episode of the previous season. So next up, focus on the fun, because too often we get wrapped up in the expectations we set for ourselves, and we focus on the details and the to-do lists instead of what is most important. What do you love to do? What makes you smile? And if money were limitless, what would you be doing today? Focus on the fun is number 5. And finally, number 6, push past the fear. It's so seductive to tell ourselves that we'll go after what we want when we have more experience or more money or more time. But the truth is that will probably never happen. We're just putting it off. And we must identify these excuses as masks for our fear. It's only when we get clear of our fears, though, and recognize how they're holding us back that we can begin to move forward. We all start our careers with optimism, zeal, and energy, feeling genuinely excited about our future. But for many of us, it gets harder and harder to hold on to that initial feeling of enthusiasm. And over time, our passion just fizzles away. It might be as a result of stress, increasing workload, or just plain boredom, any number of factors which I've already outlined here. But as time goes by, it becomes easy to forget the things that matter to us and what got us into doing what we do in the first place. And if you can find again that initial spark that drew you to whatever you're passionate about, you'll rediscover your passion. And if in the end you don't remember your passion, or you just can't quite connect with it again, you can always find a new one. Our passions are the true phoenixes. When the old one is burnt out, a new one rises from its ashes. Johann Wolfgang von, I can never know how to pronounce this, Goethe? Is that wrong? Is that right? Who knows? Can I be bothered looking it up? I can't. Anyway, I still have passion, but I've struggled with this sort of thing more and more recently, as I say. And if you find yourself in the same boat, then I hope you found something useful in all of this. With passion comes drive and a sense of achievement. So take some time to rediscover a passion that you have lost today. In next week's show, I'll be talking about the old idiom, the devil's in the detail, but what does that actually mean, and what's it got to do with productivity? For creatives, I'll tell you that it will likely be the difference between success and failure. Tune in next week to find out more. Or I say that quite a lot, the difference between success and failure. It's just another contributing factor to success and failure. But in the meantime, thank you once again for spending your valuable time here with me. I really do appreciate it. I understand myself how difficult it is to choose the right podcast to listen to when I, generally speaking, I walk the dog or I'm driving the car. So taking time out of your busy lives to spend some time here with me is greatly appreciated. But I will end now with some words from Nina Amir, who said, "Imagine your passion like a delicate flower, a passion flower. It needs love, attention, nutrients, and sun. And if you ignore it long enough, it will die. Now take control of your own destiny, keep on shooting, and join me next time on Film Pro Productivity and Success." The executive producer on this season is Christopher McPhillips, and the music that you're listening to right now is Adventures by Ehumitsu. You can follow the show on Twitter if you want, at FilmProProdPod, or on Facebook at Film Pro Productivity. And there's a full transcript of this episode on the official website, only there, at filmproproductivity.com. Although you can get some quotes and stuff if you go to the show notes. But anyway, that's an aside. Please continue to support the show by subscribing, spreading the word, and leaving an awesome review.